I've loved Pokemon since the very beginning. The TCG came out when I was around 10 years old. I went to the local mall every Saturday morning to buy myself a brand new booster pack, hoping to get Charizard, but I never did. After a while, the anime appeared on cable, and finally, Pokemon Red and Blue came around. I got my Purple Atomic Game Boy Color and never looked back. I've played every generation of games and most of the DLC installments like Pokemon Crystal and Emerald. My initial excitement and passion for Pokemon kept growing and didn't fizzle out at all the way through Generation 5, Pokemon Black and White. It wasn't until their jump to 3D with the next generation, X and Y, that I started to feel a little deflated. It's strange because you'd think with their jump to 3D that I'd be floored with how new and great this adventure would be, but all that changed after I played the game. It's not that the game is even bad, it's not that at all. But it was at this point I felt the games were getting predictable. Yes, Pokemon X and Y was a huge leap graphically, yes it looked great for the time, and I even loved a lot of the Pokemon, but essentially it was still the same game I'd been playing for the last 15 years. I expected more from this jump to 3D. The last few years I've stopped buying some of the games altogether. I've only played Sun and Moon for a few hours, and I completely skipped Let's Go and the Gen 3 remakes, despite Pokemon Ruby actually being my favorite generation of all. I'm starting to lose that hype, that excitement with each new release. This wasn't intentional by any means, but Pokemon Sword and Shield were actually my most anticipated Pokemon games yet, but they just fell a little flat. Up until the reveal of Sword and Shield, and even for quite a while after, I actually was just as hyped, if not more, than I used to be as a kid for each new Pokemon game that came out. I thought there was so much potential here for them to shake things up and give us a brand new experience, especially since Nintendo was doing this with their other franchises at the time. It wasn't until we got more information and gameplay at E3 that I started to lose interest again. All the controversies that were going on and seeing more and more of the game, I thought it was just going to be the same old thing we've been getting. And to some extent, this was true, but not entirely. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the positives about Sword and Shield that potentially make it the best Pokemon game we've gotten so far. The graphics were great. So for the most part, I really enjoyed the way the game looked. It had a better resolution out of any game we've had so far. There were more details in the surroundings, the towns, the buildings. Everything had so much more detail to it. The character models were fantastic. I just loved more of that personality that was shown through each character just by having more detail in their clothes and their way that they acted and their facial expressions. It was really great. The gym battles were another standout thing for me that I was not really expecting. I'm a huge soccer fan, so I loved that they took the European football style approach to building these stadiums for the gym battles. I loved that they called the ground where the Pokemon battles took place the pitch. We had the uniforms, the cheering fans, and just all that excitement was just so much fun to be a part of. All this really made it feel so much more closer to what the actual anime has for those Pokemon gym battles, and that was just so cool. Sword and Shield also brought a lot more character customization, which I very much enjoyed. And in games like this, I just can't help choosing the female character because there's so many more options for customization and I love it so much. The wild area was by far my favorite new feature in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that cannot be understated. For one, I didn't expect anything like this or any sort of open world style thing in the next Pokemon game, so number one, it was just a surprise to have something like this. And then it was actually good. It was integrated into the game seamlessly, it made sense, it was a great thing to interact with. I spent so many hours just running around the wild area and completely forget that I'm supposed to be collecting gym badges and progress through the story. Sword and Shield also brought so many new quality of life features that I don't understand why it took them so long to do this. Having PC access right from your backpack and not having to worry about running back to a Pokemon Center was so much appreciated. We also had Pokemon Ride returning, autosaves, and probably so many other things that I can't even remember, but all these things just made the game feel so much better and like we weren't still stuck in the old days, right? It made it feel like they were actually trying to improve and update things, and I really enjoyed that. Finally, let's talk Dynamaxing. I actually really like Dynamaxing. The Z moves from Sun and Moon I did not enjoy very much, but I more so enjoyed the Mega Evolutions from X and Y. So I really think Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing are sort of a good mash between those two things. You get a new form of a Pokemon a lot of the times, and you get new moves to use. I think I prefer Mega Evolutions more than Dynamaxing, but I think it was fun that they tried this new feature and it actually worked pretty well. Alright, let's get into the negatives now. Overall, to me, Pokemon Sword and Shield really just still felt like 3DS quality. And I know that's probably going to upset a lot of you, but I really do feel that way. Honestly, if the Switch wasn't a thing and this trailer for Sword and Shield dropped when we still had the 3DS, I wouldn't have been surprised. I would have been like, okay, yeah, this 3DS game, new Pokemon game. Now, a big part of this is because these games actually started as new games for the 3DS. They were supposed to be the successor to X and Y. So I do fully expect Generation 9 for Pokemon to be fully developed from start to finish for Switch or the next home console in the Switch lineup. So I do think there is some potential that we could still get that big shakeup, just it's going to be one generation later. The graphics to me in Sword and Shield just really felt like up-resed 3DS models. And again, I'm not saying that they were, and I'm not even saying that that's bad because I thought the game looked fantastic. I remember when we had that controversy going around about that N64 model of a tree in the wild area. I just laughed because, yeah, like the tree looks bad, but I'm not going to let this stupid tree ruin an entire game for me. But again, that doesn't mean that we can't want better graphics in a game, and that's where I'm coming from. The online in Sword and Shield is absolute garbage. It shouldn't be so difficult to just join up with my friends. Why do I have to enter in a 4-digit number and hope that no one else enters it? You can't even know if you're joining the correct person because of this. I should easily just be able to access my friend list, and if my friend is online, I should be able to message them, join up with them, and do whatever. It shouldn't be this difficult. There's constant disconnects, the wild area is super laggy, and just is an overall terrible infrastructure. Now, the story for me is a big thing that I very much do not like in the Pokemon games. Usually when I'm playing a video game, the story is something that's very important for me, but I've come to realize in Pokemon games that I just completely ignore the story. I usually skip through all the text and all the cutscenes because it's just not interesting. Every Pokemon game literally starts out the same. You start in your bedroom, you walk down the stairs, you talk to your mom, you go out, you meet the professor in the town, you meet your friendly rival who you follow the entire time, you get a new Pokemon. It's the same thing every time, and it just gets boring. Not every Pokemon game needs to follow the exact same story structure. Going along with this, the Pokemon games are also just way too easy. There's never been a difficulty setting, a master mode or anything after you beat the game, nothing like that. Things that games have been doing for years. So why do we not have that in a Pokemon game? I don't want to have to sit through the same stupid tutorial every time I start the game. I've been playing Pokemon for the last 20 years of my life. And again, I understand that that's not the truth for everyone, and I'm not telling them to get rid of this, but why not give us an option to skip these things? And finally, I don't think there's enough freedom in Pokemon games. Sword and Shield definitely took a huge leap in the right direction. Like I mentioned, I spent most of my hours in Pokemon Sword and Shield running around the wild area. I really would have loved more of the game to be like that. It was really difficult for me after getting through the first few sections of the wild area and then being forced to complete gyms in a certain order. Now, I'm not saying that we need a full Breath of the Wild style Pokemon game, but what I am saying is give us a little more freedom. Let us complete some gyms in different orders. Let us choose what we want to do and not be corralled to follow these narrow pathways and go where you want us to go. In the end, I'd say I felt sort of in the middle about Sword and Shield. Was it fun? Hell yeah, it was. Did it actually add some cool new features? Definitely. Was it quite possibly the best Pokemon game we've gotten so far? To some degree, yes, but was it the game I wanted? Not really. So what am I really looking for in a Pokemon game then? I want them to bring back the Colosseum style games, especially Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Even if they want to keep this to a side series, that's fine, but this game came out in 2005 and we've had nothing similar since. This is what I wanted in Pokemon Generation 8 with Sword and Shield. Pokemon XD was just so unique, a completely new story and colorful cast of main characters. work with your sister and a crazy scientist to purify the world of Pokemon in the land of Ore. And come on, Mirror B, coolest character in the whole Pokemon franchise. New mechanics specific to the world that fit the game. Rescue shadow Pokemon from the evil Team Cypher and cleanse them so they are pure of heart once again. Pokemon only catchable in wild spots. Completely open towns to explore. It was all just a new way to think about what a Pokemon game is, and that's why I love it so much. Some will argue that Pokemon is good the way it is, so why change it? I disagree with fans who say the games are fine the way they are. I don't want a fine game. Nothing was ever achieved without taking a risk, a chance. Sure, sometimes you get a flop, but other times you get something incredible and even better. Look what Zelda and Mario do. They constantly innovate, packed with new content. We have to wait years for each release because of the quality and perfection that Nintendo demands of its development teams. In this way, Nintendo's franchises are an exact representation of the company's core values. But not Pokemon, not Game Freak. What if Nintendo took over the development internally for Pokemon and let Game Freak make more games like Town? What would happen to the series? Would it be better? I mean, maybe. One thing for sure is that they would definitely try to shake things up. Pokemon being a full price game on the home console, it has to compete with all of Nintendo's huge first party offerings. Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Mario Maker 2, Luigi's Mansion 3, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and so many more games. Now that Pokemon is competing with some of Nintendo's greatest games of all time, I have higher expectations. I truly am looking for a different kind of Pokemon experience next time around. Now I can't end this video without mentioning Temtem. I've been streaming it over on Mixer and I am having a lot of fun with it. I've done several videos too which you can check out. I'll leave links in the description. But Temtem is doing things that I've wanted Pokemon to do for so long, new features and mechanics that Pokemon will likely never embrace. To some degree, does Pokemon need to do everything Temtem is doing? Well, no. This is why both games can and will exist in the same space. But to me, Temtem isn't afraid to try new things, and that's why it's exciting. With Pokemon Gen 9 and every subsequent release, I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that we know what to expect, and that just doesn't excite me anymore. But what do you all think? Are you happy with how the series is going? What do you want in the next Pokemon entry on Nintendo Switch? Please comment below.